Recently, I moved into a new apartment, and I have had no decorations. I've been living in a white box. Now, I didn't want to just use posters or art that was just, out there on Amazon. I wanted to make something myself, but the problem is I'm not really the most artistically talented person. I'm more of a computer science guy, but this got me thinking. Got me thinking about a paper that I had read a little while back that described a way to make art using a form of artificial intelligence, using neural networks. And so, that's exactly what I set out to do in this project. And as you can see, I succeeded in my mission. I created 3 posters using this method, and I'm going to show you how. But before I get started, I would just like to thank LG for sponsoring this video. They sent along an LG Gram that I actually did all of the work for this project on. And it's a pretty great device, but we'll talk more about it at the end of the video. So the paper describing this process is a 2015 paper titled A Neural Algorithm of Artistic Style. And if you don't have a background in linear algebra or computer science, reading the paper might be a little bit difficult. But the method that they describe is actually pretty simple. You don't really need a math background to understand it. Now, what you do need to understand is a very scary term called a neural network, which again is actually a really simple concept. So just like any other program, a neural network's goal is to transform input data into output data. So for example, you could create a neural network that transforms a picture into, say, a number, like the number of cats in the picture. But the structure of a neural network is very different from most other programs. A neural network is structured in layers of what we call neurons, and each of these neurons has a specific purpose to convert input into output in some specific way. So for example, you could have a sum neuron, which takes in 2 numbers and outputs their sum, or an average neuron, or much more complicated functions. And like I said, we arrange these neurons in layers, and the first layer is called the input layer. It's where the initial data comes in, the photo, the text, etc. And the final layer is the output layer, which is where you output what you're looking for, the number of cats. Is there a cat, etc. And in between these layers, we have what are called hidden layers, layers which transform the data into some kind of in-between phase. Now, in terms of connecting these neurons, we can make a few assumptions just based on the problem that we're solving, and the assumptions are technically that it's fully connected feed-forward. It sounds complicated again, but what it really means is that every neuron in one layer connects to every neuron in the next. But what does connected mean? Well, essentially it means that the output of one neuron becomes part of the input of a connected neuron, weighted by some number. And what becomes really powerful about neural networks is when you start to play with those weights. So usually you define a cost function, which is a mathematical representation of how far off the network is from the truth. And then you can update the weights connecting neurons in order to minimize this cost function over time, thus getting closer and closer to the truth. Okay, so that was a lot. Hopefully you understood most of it. Hopefully I didn't botch it too much. But here's where it ties into the algorithm that we're going to be using. And the algorithm that we're using, by the way, takes a photo like this and a painting like this, and it turns it into a work of art like this. It's not really in focus. Maybe I'll pop it up on the screen. The way that it works is by training a neural network which is designed to extract general features from an image. It's called VGG. You can find descriptions of it online. But essentially, every neuron in the network is designed to find features which will give us a clue as to what is contained in the image. Neurons to detect curves or lines or ovals or other shapes like that. And you start with really basic shapes and colors and end up, as you get deeper and deeper into the layers, detecting much more complex things. And the idea is that if you train this on a big enough data set, you can eventually recognize the content of images based on the patterns that you find in it. Hence, is there a cat in the image? And VGG is actually pretty good at answering these questions. As it turns out, we can also use these patterns to determine the style of an image. So for style, what we care about is actually the correlation between features in a given layer. So in one layer, if we see red lines, are there also yellow lines? And if we can figure this out for all of the features, then we can mathematically represent the style of an image. And we can do this using what's called a Gram matrix, which is just a matrix containing the correlations between all of the features in a given layer of our network. And so now we have a mathematical representation of content and of style. And so all that we do is take a white noise image and modify it over time using a process called gradient descent to minimize its content difference with our photo and its style difference with our painting. And from there, it's really just a matter of tweaking parameters until we find something that we personally think is aesthetically pleasing. So now that you've spent a bunch of time understanding neural networks and how this particular algorithm works, here's the part where I tell you that you didn't really need to know in order to get the art. And that's because the code has already been written and is on GitHub, and you can just download it and play with it. And that's exactly what I did. I headed on over to GitHub, I downloaded the Neural Style repo that has been open sourced, and I started to play. So the first thing that I did was try to make a self-portrait. This was very creepy. I don't really recommend it, but you can see something interesting, which is that as I increase the number of iterations, the image becomes more and more clear. So you really have to choose the right number of iterations and the right photos. In this way, it's a cool mix of art and AI because the human has to choose what parameters they think will look cool, which is exactly what I did. Now, I wanted 3 posters because that seemed like a nice round number and was also more affordable to print than 5. So I went searching for 3 cool photos and I settled on these: a composite photo of Mars, a drone shot of my hometown, and a photo of Harvard's freshman dining hall, Annenberg, which is also known as Hogwarts. I didn't know what paintings to use, so I actually just used a bunch that were trained already in the repo, and I just played around until I found something that I thought looked cool, just tweaking parameters as I went. So with these 3 images generated, I just went into Photoshop, touched them up a bit, cropped them to the appropriate dimensions, and sent them off to Staples to be printed. Okay, just got an email from Staples. The posters are ready, so I am going to go pick them up. Fingers crossed that they turned out well. I'm a little bit worried because I uploaded JPEGs instead of like print-ready PDFs. It should be okay, but we'll see when we get back, I guess. I realize I don't have anything to hang them up with either, so I'm gonna have to obtain that. Oh, this is cool. Okay, my hometown, styled in the Great Wave. Oh, that's so cool. That's sick. Okay, so then we've got the second one. This is Annenberg, which is the freshman dining hall at Harvard. Pretty sweet. I forget what painting this is styled after, but this looks unreal. This looks so cool. Okay, and then finally, this is the one that I like the most. This is the one I was most excited for. It's a composite photo of Mars, styled after, I think it's after a painting called La Muse. Very cool. What's so neat about all of these, but this one you can tell especially. Also, no, I think that's the right way out. But what's so cool is that, I don't know if you can see this, but you can see the canvas texture on what is, a photograph, but it's been turned into a painting. And so you can see like the stylistic brush marks along here in the canvas, like I said. And what's really cool as well is that the relief patterns on this one, Mars, all the craters and stuff, they all kind of stand out more. Because what happens is the algorithm picks up on these features and then makes sure that they show up in the final image. And so they find all these kind of circles and these craters and these divots, and when they're applying the algorithm, they make sure that those divots show up again. So very, very cool. This one is awesome. Now I have to figure out where in my apartment I'm going to hang each of these and how I'm going to hang them, because I don't have tape or sticky tack. So I might need to go buy some. So I picked up a bunch of different adhesives. I've got some double-sided tape here, got some sticky tack, got some single-sided tape. I think I'm going to try the sticky tack first. Instant tack, blue tack, I don't know what you call it. But we're going to try that and see if it works. It's my poster. Woo! Okay, it's like 2 days later. Sorry, I got a little distracted. But you can see the poster is still up. We're going to figure out where to hang the other 2 now. Wow. I think this is probably my favorite one, how it turned out. Might be kind of hard to see on video, but what I think is really cool are all of the little buildings because I recognize them. This is the parking lot where I learned how to drive. So it's kind of fun because now it's like immortalized, but in a cooler form than just like a bad drone picture. You know what I mean? Okay, so listen, I know that this looks a little bit dumb. It looks unanchored right now. You know, you've got your bed. My pillow's holding the window open, by the way, just to get some fresh air in. But you've got, you know, this. But imagine a big square poster painting thing right here. Think about how cool this would look then, right? So just, you know, trust in the process here, guys, because I think this looks awesome. This looks really, really cool. I mean, I ate pretty much every meal in here for an entire year. And so it's fun because, again, it's like a piece of my history in, you know, visual form. It's cool. And bam, no longer live in an empty white box. I have 3 posters now. Call me an interior decorator. Interior designer? Just call me an artist. So, this LG Gram, what's so special about it, you might ask? Well, how about this? It's a 17-inch laptop, which weighs less than my current 15-inch MacBook Pro. On top of that, it has a nicer screen, has a much better battery life, and a much better keyboard. And it's pretty freaking powerful. People on my Discord, when I showed them the pictures, because I shared them in my Discord before sharing them with you, they were like, oh, that must have taken hours to render. No, it took less than a minute for each of the photos to render on this, which is pretty fast. So if you're in the market for a new laptop, I definitely recommend that you check it out. It has become my daily driver for Windows-related activities. So head on over to the link in my description if you want to see what the LG Gram is all about. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you learned something, and I really do recommend that you head on over to GitHub, you check out the code, and you also check out the paper, because if you spend some time to get through it, it's not that hard to understand, and it's really, really interesting stuff. So yeah, there's plenty more that you can do as well if you're interested. You can not only apply this to images, you can apply it to video. And this is not the only way to get style and to apply style onto things. You can look at things like Google's Deep Dream, which applies a very different type of style to images. AI art is a very new but very interesting field. Anyways, I'm John Fish. Thank you for watching this video. Feel free to like it, dislike it, leave a comment, subscribe if you want to see more stuff like this. And yeah, I'll see you next time.